Underneath a solid gray expanse of indifferent clouds, the bustling airport teemed with travelers. Sanford, a skeptic at heart, tired from his day's work, shuffled quickly toward his gate. He was an anthropologist on yet another job, flying towards the heart of Cambodia to decipher ancient temple texts. He noticed the other faces with him, the diversely woven tapestry of human stories, each embarking on their separate journeys. The air hummed with the pregnant possibility of untold adventures that come with airport territory. A family on vacation, lovebirds on a honeymoon, laborers returning home, a world of anecdotes, flying together. As Sanford moved towards his airplane seat, he chanced upon an old man. The man had a peculiar aura. Wise, ancient eyes told tales of epics only he'd witnessed. Yet his smile held an unmistakable tremor, an emerald echo of dread. "Safe travels?" the old man rasped, pressing a silver coin into Sanford's hand with a surprising urgency. He didn't wait for a reply. The coin was heavy, engraved with strange, cryptic symbols and terribly out of place on a modern flight. The austere starkness of the airplane's interior contrasted with the antiquity the coin embodied. From the moment the mysterious memento shifted into his possession, Sanford felt an unexpected weight fall upon him, a premonition of disquiet. Unease crawled up his spine, but he shrugged it off as irrational nervousness. The engines roared into life. The soft whispers of hundreds of people hushed as the airplane lurched forwards. As they ascended, the cabin lights flickered intermittently. An involuntary shudder ran through the crowd, only to calm down as a flight attendant cheerfully attributed it to a minor technical snag in the lighting system. Yet Sanford's eyes remained glued to the ancient coin in his hand. The strange relic seemed to gleam oddly beneath the cabin lights as the whispering unease curled and grew within him. He fell into a restless sleep as dreams, unhinged by the lurking apprehension, began to take root deep in his mind. All was calm until it wasn't. The sudden, violent plunge of the airplane tore through the tranquil stillness, dragging him screaming from his restless slumber. The horrifying screech of tearing metal, the terrified screams of passengers, followed by a consuming black nothingness. When consciousness finally crept back, he found himself stranded on an uncharted island, the cursed coin clenched in his resisting hand. The once roaring sea was now silent, its wrath satiated. A terrible truth lay bare before him: their journey had ended in ruins, punctuated by the discordant crash of the aircraft into the abyss of the ocean, and a symphony of terror was merely unfolding. The taste of salt lingered on Sanford's lips. Dazed from the shock, he found himself on a beach scattered with remnants of the doomed flight. White damp sand drank the ocean's melancholy waves. His head pounded, recalling the explosion of chaos he had survived. But amidst the detritus, he again noticed the coin in his hand, unscathed. Its ancient symbols felt more meaningful now, prophetic even. As he tried to stand, his legs buckled under the strain of the ordeal, sending him sprawling. He noticed his surroundings, the uninviting wilderness, a dense forest crafting a formidable barrier against the horrors within. The beach, his temporary sanctuary, was little more than a prison, walled by the uncaring ocean on one side and an untamed wilderness on the other. A wisp of smoke drew his attention. They weren't alone. Other survivors had gathered around a sparse fire, a beacon of relative safety against the moonlit strangeness of the island. But as he limped closer, something seemed uncannily off. Their faces were not merely painted with the horror of surviving a crash. They held a vacant, distant look, appearing as hollow echoes of the lively personalities he vaguely remembered from the aircraft. Each held their own trinket, a talisman filled with familiar dread, just like his disquieting coin. Magic or mere coincidence? Sanford, despite his scientific leanings, found himself questioning the rational boundaries he'd always adhered to. The unusual coin, radiating an odd chill in his palm, seemed connected to the collective trauma they were experiencing. A faint murmuring among the survivors started as he approached, a dialogue woven in whispers and uncertainty. Their quivering faces turned at his approach, their glassy eyes reflecting the flickering firelight and an unnerving curiosity. Their gazes seemed to linger a bit too long on the coin in his hand. The silence following his entry was punctuating, heavy with questions left unspoken. Pausing next to the fire, Sanford reached into his pocket, turning the mysterious coin round and round. He studied it intently. Why was this relic thrust upon him just before gravity's deadly descent? Why did it seem intertwined with their current predicament? Was there an arcane power in play, or was he just letting fear pry open the door for irrational thoughts? From seasoned anthropologist to the bound captive of a potential curse, his fate had taken a far sinister turn than he could have ever predicted. A gulp of reality clenched his heart, the dread tightening its grip. His reflection was broken by the sudden flicker of the bonfire, casting ghastly shadows upon their ghostly faces, and the night, much like the mystery they were all entangled in, started to unveil its true depth. Underneath a choir of distant stars, the survivors huddled around the flickering flame, their faces etched with dread beneath the dancing light. Their whispers grew into a cacophony of shared accounts, each person's tale more configured towards the eccentric than the last. All accounts funneled to the same focal point: the peculiar artifacts each survivor held. Sanford listened with perplexed fascination, both a participant and an observer. The stories weaved tales of strange coincidences, harbingers in the form of trinkets offered by strangers, or found in unexpected places before boarding the flight. A locket with an elaborate sun, an intricate sculpture of a serpent, a brittle parchment covered in dancing symbols, each held an echo of the strange. The tales twined into similar threads, a sense of dread, a nagging portent, the fear confirmed as the plane plummeted. And like Sanford's strange coin, each passenger-cum-survivor found themselves inexplicably attached to their item, a bond cemented in shared disaster. Cassandra, a brilliant historian, was the most unsettling of them. Reluctantly, she relayed her tale with a trembling voice. Like Sanford, an old man had given her an ornate dagger, and with a cryptic message. "It is time to rewrite the annals of destiny." The cryptic sentence chilled Sanford to his core, as did the dagger, which mirrored the markings on his coin. Driven by budding camaraderie, the survivors decided they must crack the code embedded in these seemingly meaningless artifacts, a mystery to decipher that was likely tied to their survival. United by a common goal and a shared calamity, a fresh resolve took root, an unseen force inspiring them to rise against their cruel fate. As the night leaned into the early morning, the group, now a band of misfortuned explorers, made a pact. Together they would face the island's strange secrets and their harrowing situation. Together, they would navigate the intricate web of the past that seemed to have ensnared them. Sanford, with his curious coin gripped firmly in his hand, thought of the unknown challenges lying ahead. The night grew quiet, and the vacuous darkness yawned wider, pulling them into strange dreams, a prelude to the uncanny truths that lay ahead. The crackling fire, the soothing hum of crashing waves, and the whispers of the silenced forest served as a lullaby cocooning them into sleep. But despite the calm, each knew this respite was short-lived as the real tribulation was yet to bare its teeth. Sanford awoke at dawn, the embers of the bonfire barely glowing. The piercing whistle of a bird marked the onset of a harsh new day. He glanced at the coin clutched in his hand. Its markings seemed to shift when caught in the infant sun's glow. It was a sign, perhaps, a summons to decipher the conundrum they were trapped in. A melange of indecipherable feelings lingered within him as he looked at his companions, all changing from mere passengers to survivors, now companions in this uncharted trial. Ordinary individuals forged by the extraordinary upheaval, transforming into adventurers and knowledge seekers. The contrast was bizarre, surreal yet terribly real. With a deep sigh he stood, brushing the sand from his clothes. The group gathered, sharing sparse morsels salvaged from the wreckage for a meager breakfast. Strengthening their resolve, they decided to venture into the dense forest in search of sanctuary and whatever answers they could find. Their march into the depth of wilderness commenced, each grasping their unsettling artifact firmly. The archaic coin Sanford held seemed to guide him as they forged their way through the sprawling vegetation. It pulsated in his hand, almost as if leading him in a particular direction. The deeper they delved, the stranger their surroundings became. Soon, They found themselves amid ancient ruins, remnants of a forgotten civilization swallowed by nature. The monoliths were covered in cryptic ciphers that mirrored the designs on their artifacts. Enormous trees surrounded the derelict structures, bearing silent witness to civilizations born and forgotten, just as the survivors were now. Their discovery incited a stir of bone-chilling intrigue among the group. The uncanny resemblance between the symbols on their belongings and those etched into the ruins quieted the whispers of chance. It was as if these artifacts were keys, drawing them back through time to unlock secrets hidden within this lost land. As they delved further into the mystery, Sanford used a piece of charcoal from their extinguished fire to replicate the symbols from his coin onto parchment scavenged from the plain. A map or a cipher, perhaps? Only time would tell. Tucking it back into his pocket, they continued their treacherous adventure. In the stillness of the forgotten ruins, the group seemed to teeter on the teeming edge of discovery. The sun began to recede, casting long penumbral shadows across the decimated grandeur of the ancient city. As the darkness coiled around them, questions whirled in their minds, and they set up camp for the night, their second night on the island, which increasingly felt like a conjured fragment of some chaotic dream. Through uncertainty and rising fear, the promise of answers gave them the courage to face the crawling darkness. Little did they realize the peculiar journey they were embarking on was just the beginning of the complex saga intricately twined with their fate. The island, their strange artifacts, the uncanny connections, it was the beginning of a puzzle whose pieces were scattered across eons and dimensions. The next day unfolded with the promise of new discoveries. Eager to unravel more secrets, they ventured further into the forgotten civilization. Guided by the cryptic symbols on artifacts resonating mysteriously with the coin, they found their way into a temple's ruins. The temple, wrapped in years of dust and swallowed by overgrowth, held an eerie solemnity. Its massive stone walls were cloaked in a tapestry of archaic symbols and murals of a forgotten saga. In the center of the grand room rested a huge stone pedestal shaped like their artifacts. The significance of this could not be ignored. The group methodically began to fit each artifact into the matching impressions on the pedestal. As the last object, Cassandra's ornate dagger, slid into its place, a low rumble filled the temple. Sanford clutched his coin, feeling it thrum in response, as the ground beneath them trembled. Slowly, an ancient mechanism sprung to life, stones ground against each other, and a hidden passage yawned open, revealing a hidden chamber. Sandstone dust hung in the air as they held their breath, half in awe and half in trepidation. The chamber was filled with artifacts, scrolls of parchment, and lost treasures of the bygone civilization. The eerie murals, preserved within this chamber, spoke of prophecies, gods, and the roles of strange artifacts much like the ones they possessed. Within this chamber, the survivors discovered their true purpose, a prophecy which spoke of outsiders bearing symbols of divine intervention and tasked with a divine mission. The ancient parchment revealed a story of an ancient catastrophe, a calamity that plunged the island into chaos, causing the downfall of its civilization long ago. Echoes of this ancient past were to be prevented from recurring in their time, it explained. A task had been given to them by the forces of fate themselves, to prevent the island and the world beyond from succumbing to a similar doom. As the words of prophecy echoed in their minds, realization dawned. They weren't merely survivors of a plane crash, they were chosen. As the sun set, they found themselves in a state of dazed bewilderment. The fate whose cruel jest hurled them into this strange situation now seemed more purposeful than capricious. With newfound resolve and their roles redefined, they returned to their makeshift camp, the shadows of the forest whispering forgotten tales around them. The night brought them dreams of celestial entities, ancient ceremonies, and arcane symbols. Their dreams were filled with whispers of battles fought long ago, of divine intervention, and an impending catastrophe. Their mission was now clear. They were on the island on fate's decree and had been chosen to prevent a doomed prophecy from repeating. Night turned into dawn, and the day arrived with an existential cognizance. Armed with the knowledge imparted from the hidden chamber, they prepared to delve deeper into the island's secrets. The coin, the locket, the statue, the parchment, and the dagger were not mere survivors' relics. They were keys to their divine mission. And so they embarked further, each step intertwining them more closely with the island's cryptic chronicle. They were survivors, explorers, initiates in an ancient order, custodians of the world, chosen by divine symbols. Their fate was sealed, their mission divine, their path laden with mysteries, to be unraveled with bravery and intellect. The saga was far from over. The dreams of nocturnal frenzy were merely the prelude. Ahead lay obscure trials, cryptic riddles, divine intervention, eerie chambers, and a destiny that intertwined the past, present, and future. The journey had just begun. As dawn broke, the survivors turned chosen ones huddled around their campfire, the remains of their meager breakfast foregone in favor of the scrolls laid out in front of them. The symbols that once held an air of mystery now seemed familiar, guidance for their daunting mission. Sophia, who was a historian, took it upon herself to translate the scrolls. The first trial was deciphered as they read the scroll. It was to take place in the Flaming Gorge, a place where the earth burned ceaselessly, fed by a subterranean bed of volcanic activity. A test of courage and wit, the challenge was to retrieve an ancient relic housed in the heart of the flames. Suddenly, survival wasn't their only concern on this forsaken island. They were thrust into an ancient prophecy, each challenge designed to test them, their unity, their bravery, and their ability to adapt to their ever-changing circumstances. With a newfound resolve, they set out, their path guided by Sanford's coin, which now glowed with a strange intensity. The Flaming Gorge put up a scary spectacle as they arrived. Violent red flames danced amid a stark landscape of blackened rocks and smoky air. Fear gripped them but also illuminated their courage and conviction. With strategic planning and careful maneuvers, they managed to reach the center of the Flaming Gorge. As described in the scroll, the relic, a glistening obsidian sphere, rested on a stone pedestal. Its surface was etched with symbols reminding them of their artifacts. With great care, Cassandra used her ornate dagger to lift the sphere out of its encasing, placing it into a protective leather pouch they had brought along. Upon retrieving the relic, the flames flickered, dimmed, and gave way to a peaceful calm. The gorge, once ablaze, now resembled a serene landscape of obsidian stone. By claiming the sphere, they had passed their first trial, conquering their fears and succeeding in their mission. Victorious and overjoyed, they headed back to their camp. The symbol on the sphere was the same they had seen earlier on the parchment. Another piece to the perplexing puzzle they had been thrust into. On their return, a feeling of rejuvenation filled them. They were not only survivors but custodians of hope, participants in a grand design. The sphere was the first of their many challenges to come, a symbol of their preparedness, bravery, and unity. Each bringing their unique strengths to the fore emerged as a team bound by common destiny. That night, surrounded by the familiar hum of the forest, the once standard plane passengers celebrated their victory. Unexpected champions united to face the ancient prophecy foretold by a civilization long forgotten. They found strength in their unique bond. Tomorrow's light would bring another trial from the scroll, another challenge in the heart of this cryptic island. Yet, in that moment, they realized they were bound by something greater than just survival. They were bound by a mission, a call of divine purpose, and an unlikely fraternity formed in the cauldron of fate's curious dance. So, they rested under the stars, each contemplating the overwhelming path ahead. Malachi, once a quiet schoolteacher, strummed a soft melody on his guitar, casting a comforting harmony over the group. Around the dancing flames, they shared laughter and tales, a fond reprieve from their extraordinary circumstance. The trials had begun. The island was no longer just a silent foe. It was an enigmatic mentor pushing them towards their destined roles. Night's End would invite another day, another mystery, another challenge, and onward they would march. For they were not lost, they had been found by destiny. After placing the sphere within the temple, they discovered a new passage. The labyrinthine corridors whispered tales of yore, of maharajas and mystics, of forgotten gods and fallen heroes. The scrolls spoke of an echo chamber, a place where the past could be seen and heard. With each step, the air grew colder, and an unspoken awe descended upon them. Emerging into a grand cavern, they were awestruck by what they saw. Crystals of various sizes jutted from the ground and walls, culminating in a massive crystal formation at the room's heart. Pulsating through this formation were ethereal lights, acting like the heart of the cavern, beating with an ancient rhythm. As they approached the central formation, an energy bound them and filled the air. Images started to emerge amid the lights. Scenes began to play out. It was akin to watching a film of other times, other lives. Warriors fighting fierce battles, artists crafting masterpieces, scholars devising solar calendars, and priests conducting grand rituals. Flashes of a cataclysm swept past them, of the heavens falling and the earth shaking, of people running in fear and despair, of a dark shadow swallowing the once glorious civilization. Then, there was silence, and the echo chamber returned to its serene glow. They, the keepers of their race, the harbingers of hope, witnessed their predecessors' downfall and breathed in its tragic majesty. The past now lived within them as a bitter reminder of the urgency of their mission. Sophia carved transcriptions of the images into a separate scroll as Sanford solemnly paced the cavern. The echoes brought them closer together as they watched the same past unfold and felt the same pangs of hardship and loss. Respecting the sanctity of the echo chamber, they quietly exited. The history they had witnessed left a chilling impression on their spirits. Armed with the echoes of the past and an unwavering resolve to change the future, they prepared for the next trial. As they nestled around the campfire, they shared reflective thoughts on the experiences of the day. Understanding dawned like the morning sun as they realized their quest was not only to save the world but also to redeem the fallen civilization. They were the weavers of the new era, custodians of the old, forging a bond between epochs. In the silence of the night, a newfound respect for each other blossomed. They were no longer strangers, castaways from a plane crash, but kin, brought together by a purpose that spanned across millennia. The weight of their calling forged them into a single unit, a beacon of hope amid the island's dense, mysterious jungles. Armed with the knowledge of the past and the determination to alter the future, they rested in preparation for the challenges of the next day. With the rising sun, their mettle would again be tested. Their journey, their survival strung with a string of destiny, had begun echoing in the annals of the forgotten civilization. The echoes of the past became the roadmap of the present, guiding them toward a future they had the power to reshape. As they bore witnesses to the tale of two epochs, the pedestal of the prophecy stood witness to their fates intertwined intricately with the echoes of the past. Their mission was beyond survival. It was about redemption, rebirth, and the resounding echoes of the past finding their home in them, the chosen ones. Awakening from their contemplative slumber, the chosen ones opened the next scroll. The challenge inscribed was one requiring balance. A test of control, between creation and destruction, between the water and fire elements housed within the canyons of flow and flame. They started their journey towards the canyons. The path was treacherous, with rivers of molten lava and rushing water carving out the landscape. They navigated with the help of the glowing coin, venturing into the heart of the island, where the landscape danced with the elements. Nested within this volatile landscape, the chalice of elements evoked both awe and fear. The relic was designed to cater to the balance of the elements. To obtain the chalice, one had to control and channel both water and fire into designated slots in a massive ancient mechanism. The chalice hung suspended between two rocks, surrounded by a circle of fire and a ring of rushing water, each fed by two separate channels. Their task was to control the flow of each element, at once using their artifacts, and thereby gain access to the relic. Working together, Sanford, whose coin had guided them till now, stepped in to control the fire branch while Cassandra focused on the water with her dagger. Their actions had to align precisely. Too much fire would evaporate the water, and too much water would put out the fire. Sweat poured down Sanford's face, rivaled by the concentration etched deeply into Cassandra's. Their hands maneuvered their artifacts, manipulating the elemental flows. After a nerve-wracking attempt, they succeeded. As the fire and water in the mechanism balanced, the chalice descended into their waiting arms, rewarding their understanding of equilibrium. When they emerged from the canyon, holding the chalice aloft, The cheer that rang out from the group was a mixture of relief and jubilation. The second relic was theirs, and they had conquered a test of their unity and understanding of the natural forces. That night they regrouped around the campfire, each bearing a deeper respect for each other. They had not only understood the elements but also realized their necessity for balance, reflecting in their group dynamics, alliances, responsibilities, and shared purpose. Over the fire, they held the chalice of elements, a symbol of their triumph over nature's fury and a testament to their unity and balance. It represented their growing understanding of the trials and the unseen force guiding them. As they rested under the starlit sky, processing the dance of the elements they'd experienced, they moved one step closer towards decoding the prophecy. The once stranded passengers now faced trials set by an ancient civilization, playing their part in a prophecy that extended beyond their understanding and scope. The dance of elements became more than a trial of balance. It encapsulated the spirit of their journey, an intricate dance of challenges, victories, and newfound comradeship in a world teetering on the brink of an existential crisis. The darkness gave way to a sense of anticipation. With each trial, they were moving closer to their salvation, and perhaps that of all humankind. The following dawn broke with a promise of hope as they readied themselves for their next challenge. The scrolls led them to a patch of dense, primordial forest untouched by time. There, in its heart, lay the third relic, the staff of life and death, guarded by the eternal guardian. According to the prophecy, the guardian was a massive creature of an era long gone, bound by ancient magic to protect the staff. The guardian let out a deafening roar as they stepped into its territory, shaking the earth beneath their feet. Faced with an actual living creature, the group suddenly felt a sense of uncertainty. Nonetheless, they knew there was no retreat from this path. Alan, a man of impressive stature and strength, stepped forward. Though initially reserved, he now showed not the slightest hint of hesitation as he took on the responsibility. As he approached the guardian, it growled menacingly. Alan held up the spear from their collected artifacts and spoke. "Heed my words, eternal guardian. We come not as invaders but seekers of salvation." The guardian paused, a spark of cognition in its eyes, before it lunged at Alan. It battled him not as a wild beast but as a worthy opponent, testing his strength, wit, and determination. Alan danced and dodged with surprising agility, utilizing his spear to fend off attacks without inflicting harm. He respected the creature, comprehending the monumental task it had been entrusted with for countless years. He fought with a purpose, not out of violence. After a rigorous battle reflecting Alan's perseverance, the Guardian, realizing their noble intent, ceased its assault. It stood by the staff of life and death, gazing solemnly at the group before stepping aside, acknowledging their victory. A reciprocation of understanding between man and beast, the Guardian was not vanquished but honored. As Alan retrieved the staff, the group could not help but applaud his bravery. With the third relic in their grasp, they felt a surge of newfound confidence. They had faced nature, elements, and now a primeval entity, and emerged victorious every time. That evening, around their shared fire, they were a changed team, staring at the staff in awe. It was a symbol and a reminder, a symbol of their triumph and a reminder of their journey's grueling reality. The staff stood testament to the indomitable human spirit, echoing Alan's words. "We come not as invaders but seekers of salvation." The night passed peacefully, the monstrous guardian itself a silent protector to their camp. As they rested, they reflected on their encounter with the guardian. They learned that not every obstacle was meant to be overcome by brute force, and that understanding and respect were more powerful weapons. In the quiet shade of the ancient trees, under the watchful eyes of the eternal guardian, they slept, anticipating the challenges that lay ahead and the lessons they were yet to learn. Their expedition was far from over. Every step, every relic, served as a marker on the path to understanding their extraordinary destiny. The eternal guardian served a purpose beyond what they originally thought, rooting the travelers deeper in respect and acknowledgement of the island's mystical past and its intertwining with their future. The group woke to the musical chorus of exotic birds, marking a new day in this extraordinary journey. They packed their camp and left the comforting presence of the eternal guardian, setting their path towards an enigmatic destination, the Mirage Plains. It was dubbed so because of the powerful psychic energy that pervaded the area, creating illusions that tested the mind. Here lay the fourth relic, the Eye of Truth, said to pierce through all deceptions and illusion. As they tread further into the plains, the reality around them began to warp. They saw vivid images of their deepest fears, happiest memories, and wildest dreams. The illusions threatened to consume them, to distract and divide them. United they stood, supporting each other, reaffirming their shared reality against the onslaught of illusions. As the one with an unyielding sense of perception, Seraphina volunteered to tackle this challenge. She tied a rope around her waist, the other end held by the team, as she ventured deeper into the illusionary chaos. Vivid illusions swarmed her. She was back at her home, then in a nightmare from her childhood, then amidst an impossible future. The illusions pulled at her sanity, testing her strength to distinguish reality. The paradox of the plains was that the path to the relic wasn't physical but fought within oneself. With her sturdy mind and the group's faith in her, she pressed on, relying on the signet ring artifact from their collection to guide her. She clung to her resolve, separating the imaginary from the real. Finally, after what seemed like hours, she emerged from the illusionary haze, holding the Eye of Truth. The artifact dispelled the illusions in its radius, creating a safe path back to the group. She made her way back, the group pulling her in with the rope, an anchor to their collective reality. When Seraphina returned, an air of relief swept the group. They celebrated this victory, particularly hard one, not over a tangible adversary but against their own minds. They had survived fears, lived through desires, and now they felt themselves changed, each bearing newfound resilience and knowledge about themselves and their teammates. As they camped that night, the Eye of Truth glowed in the firelight, a beacon against deception. It stood as a symbol of their truth, their reality in this extraordinary odyssey. Despite being physically and emotionally spent, they slept soundly, knowing they were 4 steps closer to the end of their journey. The relics captured their progression, marking their course, and the moments of understanding that each challenge provided. The Mirage Plains and the Eye of Truth had taught the group the potential of their own minds. They learned how their subjective realities could be illusions, and how important it became in unfamiliar territories to cling on to shared truths. As they prepared for the challenges awaiting, they did so knowing they were more united, more resilient than before.